Hello guys, how you guys doing today? Welcome. Now I want to show you something that pertains to the ways of our forefathers. Alright? Now you see this? It's a combination of various herbs, right? These are actually a combination of plant parts, mostly leaves. I have some whole plants in there. Alright? This is what we call agbo locally. The Yorubas call it agbo. In some parts of the country, it's also called agbo. Now, this that I'm about to pour out, this liquid, you can see. Yeah, this is herbal tea. Gotten by boiling a combination of these leaves. All these herbs, and this is what it looks like. Now, a few days ago, I woke up feeling feverish. In fact, the symptoms were very, very pronounced. I had sore throat. I had my temperature was high. I had headache. So what I did was that I got some herbs from my garden, and then I took them to suppress the symptoms, and then I resorted and turned to the ways of our forefathers, herbal remedies, and I collected the ingredients, a mix of different plant parts, predominantly leaves, in combination with some roots and some whole plants, and then I washed them thoroughly, and then I put them in a pot and I boiled them for some minutes, after which I could obtain this. So satisfying. It's bitter though, because in there we have some plants that, when boiled, produce bitter extract, right? Now, I've been taking this since Saturday. Today is Monday, and I'm feeling strong already. The symptoms are gone, headache gone, sore throat gone. I just have kata, okay? But I'm feeling pretty good. Now, there's been this, age-long debate between people who subscribe to pharmaceuticals and people who subscribe to herbal remedies. Which one is better? Which one is safer? Which one is more effective? Well, I would talk a little about both pharmaceuticals, pharmaceutical medicine, and herbal remedies. And I will talk about them, make a comparison as unbiased as possible. Now, we'll be looking at differences in context of action and effectiveness, as well as potential dangers associated with using the pharmaceuticals or herbal remedies. Now, before we delve into the main comparison, it will interest you to know that pharmaceutical medicine and herbal remedies differ significantly in their mechanism of action, effectiveness, and potential dangers. Now, while pharmaceuticals are designed to target specific biological pathways, herbal remedies take a more holistic approach, using a combination of compounds to produce an effect. Yeah. Now, we want to compare these two classes of remedies or treatments in the context of action and effectiveness, as well as potential dangers. All right. Now, pharmaceutical medicine or pharmaceuticals are typically synthetically produced and contain a single and highly concentrated active ingredient. It could be a compound, it could be 2 or 3 compounds in some cases. Now, they are engineered to act on a specific target, such as a particular enzyme or receptor. Now, this targeted approach allows for a precise and often rapid effect, making them highly effective for treating specific diseases or symptoms. The dosage is standardized, ensuring that each pill, or or a dose contains the same amount of the active ingredient. Herbal remedies, on the other hand, is made from whole plants or parts of plants and contains a complex mix of chemical compounds, which means that they have a more synergistic effect, and act through a combination of, a number of compounds, to produce therapeutic outcomes. Okay, so these, group of compounds present work together, in order to produce a therapeutic outcome. The action is less targeted and more holistic, which implies that they act in such a manner or fashion that works with your natural immune responses. Essentially, they help to elicit the appropriate immune responses in order to fight diseases. So rather than just target the symptoms, they work with your immune system, affording your immune system the available resources to engender adequate responses so that you can naturally fight diseases. And the active compounds present in herbal remedies can change based on the growing conditions, harvesting process, and preparation. So like pharmaceuticals that have a fixed dosage, here there is no fixed dosage. The content of the active compounds present here can vary or change based on, like I said, growing conditions, the harvesting process, as well as the preparation process. Now let's look at potential dangers. In the case of pharmaceuticals, since the active ingredient there is, that was a mosquito. Now, since the active ingredient present, is highly concentrated, all right? There is risk of an overdose when the indications are not properly understood, all right? Imagine a patient who gets a pharmaceutical drug, and unbeknownst to the patient, it proceeds to take the drug beyond the recommended dosage. Probably the patient or the individual hasn't consulted with a professional, a medical professional, and proceeds to take more pills than required. What happens? Overdose. And this can result in serious health complications and even death. Another danger could be the fact that there's a high risk of reactions in most cases, because what these chemicals do is that they could potentially interfere with certain pathways in the body, and since the actions are specific, targeting specific enzymes or receptors, it could trigger a biological response, and that could result in a serious reaction. And that's why you see in most cases when people take medication, pharmaceuticals, they present reactions which would also require treatment. In some cases, they might even require hospitalization in order to recover from these reactions. Those are potential side effects of using pharmaceuticals, right? It's also speculated that some of the chemicals present in these, drugs, pharmaceuticals now, could potentially generate, free radicals within the cells of the tissues of the body. And we know that free radicals are not very, very friendly compounds, when present within the cell. And that is where antioxidants comes into play. Let's talk about the potential dangers of herbal remedies. Now, since it contains a complex mix of compounds, there's actually no telling what the actual active ingredient is. So there's a possibility where you bombard your system with so many chemicals. Most of them are actually beneficial and could potentially aid your immune system to fight diseases, and pathogens. However, since the compounds here are so complex, so it's almost like there's this saying locally where people indigenous to Nigeria would say anywhere beleface. So it's typically a case of anywhere beleface. Essentially, the compound therein are so many, and as such, there's no particular one that could potentially be noted to act on that particular problem or disease. So your system is flooded with so many compounds, and that actually gives your liver more work, because it's the liver that actually detoxifies, the blood. So essentially, when there are so many compounds in the blood, the liver gets to work and works more, because those ones that are essentially left behind, the liver is charged with the duty of now eradicating or getting rid of them. So your liver works more, when you take herbal remedies, because it contains so many active compounds, and in most cases, since there's no dosage, you end up taking more than required, and then you give your liver more work. That is another downside of herbal remedies, the fact that there's no dosage. There's also risk of underdosing. You might end up, maybe your preparation process is flawed, probably you did not prepare it very well. You find that you might end up not extracting most of the compounds required to elicit the right immune responses, and at the end of the day, your illness or the disease doesn't go away. So that's the downside of this. And we also mentioned earlier that the growing conditions also determine the way the compounds are contained in the plant. So essentially, when you use herbal remedies, there are so many non-specifics. So it's more like a more vague approach. But when you do it right, it's actually very effective. And there's barely risk of reactions. There is also risk of contamination when using herbal remedies. Unlike in pharmaceuticals, where the medicines are produced under stringent, hygiene conditions, clean environment and all that. For the use of herbal remedies, you can obtain plant parts or whole plants that have been contaminated by certain agrochemicals like insecticides, pesticides, fungicides, whatever. Another risk could be you not thoroughly washing your ingredients. You could have sourced them in an environment where the plants there have been, contaminated by probably dog poop, could be cow dung, it could be, droppings from birds, whatever. It could be also urine. Probably someone has urinated there, unbeknownst to you. Collect your ingredients from there, and then if you don't wash thoroughly or boil thoroughly, you could end up further complicating your problem by ingesting some rather unwanted, unwanted contents there. So that's a risk of using herbal remedies as well.
The end.